Welcome to Not Quite My Tempo with Chris. We are back today with a review for the next blockbuster of the summer that I totally forgot was coming out, and that is Masters of the Universe. A live action He Man movie that I did see bits of the trailer of, but this movie coming out really escaped my memory until this weekend or so. I honestly wasn't too excited for it. I never watched any He Man in my life, any of the cartoons, or the Dolph Lundgren movie. I'd never even known of the Dolph Lundgren movie until recently either. So before seeing this movie, I was pretty much 100% new to He-Man as a franchise and character. I honestly wasn't even too sure what the plot of this movie or the lore fully was. I have seen it now though, and have gotten my first exposure to He-Man. Directed by Travis Knight, a young man on Earth, played by Nicholas Galitzine, discovers a fabulous secret legacy as the prince of an alien planet, and must recover a magic sword and return home to protect his kingdom. So going into this movie, as someone who is very new to this franchise, I was curious to see what the setup of the world was. I knew there were aliens and magic swords, I had heard of Skeletor as well, but the specific conflict and world building I had no idea about, and this movie does get you right into that with an opening sequence that sets up a lot of the major characters in this movie, both for heroes and the villains, and showing how this world was before the major incident of the film and sets the stage for some of the character arcs here. The cast here is a lot of fun. Nicholas Galitzine as He-Man, or Adam as he is known by for much of this movie, I felt was a very well-balanced lead character, with being very clumsy and silly, but having enough real to him with this legacy he's dealing with and trying to discover himself. The situation he's in and where some things go in this story remind me of some elements in the Thor movies. You see him as an adult on Earth that has memories of this other life that he feels he was meant to have. This search he goes on to find it that leads to some ridiculous moments on Earth, people thinking he's crazy. They do not hold back on the silliness here. The humor is loud and wacky. The characters saying these things about their power and destiny that make sense on He-Man's planet, but on Earth no one knows what he's talking about. There's some physical bits here. The stuff on Earth with this kind of the fish out of water concept is a lot of the humor for the early part of the film. Once you get to Eternia, the context of this alien planet and things being more colorful and fantasy-like takes away some of the goofiness. Definitely not all of it, but that awkward edge goes away a bit. And this earlier part of the film with him on Earth had a lot of the least funny and most annoying humor in the film for me. Just a lot of the jokes where the bit is that he looks crazy and he's talking about these parts of his home very serious-like. The awkward parts of some of that got more cringe for me than actually being funny. It got old pretty quick. One bit in particular in this stretch of the movie goes on for way too long in my opinion. And I understand the need for silliness in a He-Man title. Even with my very limited knowledge of the franchise, you look at some of the imagery and it's a campy world. And I think even in the live-action adaptation, you have to have some of that to be faithful to the world you're bringing to life. But that earlier stuff on Earth really got old for me. It was definitely my least favorite part of the movie. But once you get to Eternia and things really get going with the main adventure of the movie, it got a lot better for me. And that includes the humor and silliness. Once the color and silliness got to this fictional and vibrant planet, it worked better for me. The loudness of these characters and this all taking place now in a world where the cheesiness feels more in place was much more enjoyable to me. I will say though, throughout the whole movie, the humor gets very predictable and basic at points. Some of the standard MCU kind of humor, there's some jokes that start to get set up that you start to roll your eyes because you know exactly where it's going, and ends up feeling really forced. This movie has a handful of funny moments that really worked for me, but it's mostly cringe and predictable with the humor. Once you get into things, the main cast is a lot of fun. Nicholas Galitzine has the physical toughness of He-Man when he needs to, but he's also endearing, and even some of the humor of this movie that did work for me, he was a big part at pulling it off with his liveliness. Camila Mendes and Idris Elba round out the rest of the ensemble of the Masters of the Universe, and the chemistry with everyone on this brisk adventure was entertaining to me. I will say the characters here are very thin, and the arcs in depth are quite shallow. There's ideas touched on with some of them, but nothing that really works too meaningfully into the story. Adam's arc with his destiny has some powerful moments, but every other character is fun, but also feels like they're just there for some humor and to round things off in the story. They don't have a ton to them that you can identify with or get invested in. As a sci-fi adventure, this movie does work in a lot of ways. The color of Eternia and these costume and world designs are vast and vibrant. Jared Leto as Skeletor fits the tone really well with his cartoony villainy. The sort of sword action and camera work and choreography has some really dynamic stuff and ways the different abilities of the characters work together. The action was perhaps my favorite part of this movie. From the opening of the movie, the mix of the sci-fi elements of the world with some hard-hitting choreography and blows was really exciting. There's also some ship battles and chases that add some variety, and overall the third act is really strong. The movie absolutely nails the adventure part. The story is extremely basic and there's a lot of underdeveloped characters, but that blockbuster excitement and fun is very present here. I do wish it went deeper with some of the emotions and characters, especially as it sets up some more interesting ideas with Adam's character and his past. There always seemed like more compelling avenues to take the characters that the movie never really goes for, and instead treats them more like jokes for too long. I felt some potential left on the table there with some characters. Overall, I'm very mixed on Masters of the Universe. As my introduction to He-Man, it's a fun adventure with an enjoyable cast and a handful of solid humor and emotional beats, but it's also full of humor I found annoying and forced, and the characters and story were pretty shallow when there seemed to be more potential with them. I can't say if you're a He-Man fan you'd enjoy this because I'm not familiar enough with the franchise, but if you want a fun blockbuster that has excitement even with a bare-bones story and supporting characters, I would give this a try, otherwise I wouldn't recommend. I had some fun with this though. I give Masters of the Universe a 74 out of 100. That's going to be it for me on Not Quite My Tempo with Chris. I'll be back very soon with a retro review for Ferris Bueller's Day Off and talking some Steven Spielberg with Disclosure Day coming out and doing some top 5 Steven Spielberg. It's going to be a lot of fun, but until then, enjoy.